The Buddha said, having known with my awareness the train of thought in Brahma's awareness, as a strong man would extend his flexed arm, or flex his extended arm, vanishing into the root of the royal sala tree in the Sabaga forest in Kolkata, and appear in that Brahma world. Brahma saw me coming in the distance, and on seeing me said, "Come, good sir, you are welcome. Good sir, it has been long, good sir, since you arranged to come here." No, Buddha? No! You cannot read minds or vanish from earth and appear in heaven to talk to the gods. If you think you can prove the supernatural in your religion, or if you think that Buddhism is just a philosophy and doesn't contain supernatural claims, then give us a call, because the show is starting right now. Hello, welcome to Talk Heathen. This is Sunday, August the 13th, 2023, and I'm your host, Richard Gilliver. And joining me today is the very wonderful Dan. How are you, Dan?
What's up? I'm good. What's up, Ricardo? Ricardo G, as I like to say.
Ricardo G, yes.
Ricardo G.
I am very, very, very well, thank you. I've been doing lots and lots of things this weekend, so I haven't had a minute to sit down, but that's all good. Dive straight in and let's get some things done. Let's just start with the announcements. Talk Heathen is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin. It is a 501c3 non-profit organization, and it is dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Talk Heathen is a live call-in show, and we have open lines. So get your calls in on 512-991-9242 or from your computer at tiny.cc/callth. But of course, before we jump into the calls, we have the question of the week. Woo! As always, last week we asked you, what is a prayer request that you would raise eyebrows in a place of worship? And the top three answers are C0. The best prayer request I could offer is from a bumper sticker I bought but didn't have the nerve to put on my car. Jesus, protect me from your followers. That would take some nerve to put on the bumper. What do you think, Dan?
That's a solid one.
Would that require
I'd
some
put
nerve
that on my car. Yeah, 100%.
You would. Yeah. That's great. The next one is, I'm just going to pronounce the first name because I'm not even going to attempt the second one. Oliver says, a prayer request that might raise eyebrows. Please pray for God to regrow my foreskin. Too sensitive?
Ooh.
I think the foreskin might be too sensitive if you attempt to regrow it, yeah.
Right.
Number one, what says prayer request. Please contract my... who's coming out with these words today? Occipito frontalis. And that's apparently the muscle that raises your eyebrows. As you can tell, I am not a medical person. That's another good one. Do you think that God can contract body parts?
I mean, he should, right? I don't see why he wouldn't. If he can, talk to people through burning bushes and spit in people's eyes and heal them from blindness, yeah, why not, right? So,
sure. Maybe should have contracted the body part of the Holy Spirit that entered Mary and gave us Jesus, and the world might be a lot better place if that was the case. So we have a different question, but a question of the week next week, and the prompt for that is: you are in hell. Who is your roommate? Enter your best answer below the video in the comments, and next week we will reveal the top three answers and make the names as hard to pronounce as possible because it will be Dan doing the reading. But let me ask you this, Dan. In the meantime, you are in hell, so who would be your roommate?
So if it's actually hell and the premise is I'm there for purposes of eternal torment, it would be Pat Robertson, no questions asked, because I have nothing in common with the man, but also he is the devil incarnate. If the devil is real, he exists as Pat Robertson did on Earth. So Pat Robertson probably would be my pick for this particular prompt.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a roommate who you don't agree with, I think it would always be infinitely more interesting than kind of having one you do. It would certainly make living life much more interesting. Danny, you ready to jump into calls?
Oh, I'm always ready to jump into calls. You know it. Let's do it.
Who shall we take? Who shall we take? Let's take Muji, who is asking, why God? Muji, are you there?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, Muji, you're live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Yeah, my name is Muji, and I'm a former atheist. I converted to Islam. And I was wondering that if God wants just people to do good deeds and follow his commands, which are doing good deeds, love one another, love your neighbor as you love yourself, give charity, take care of orphans, and so on. So what your atheist, what kind of problems you have with such a, request?
Yeah, well, if it was that simple, we wouldn't have any problems. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. If there was just a big being out in the sky who was saying, yeah, this is what you should do, whether or not he was real or not, it seems like I wouldn't care. But unfortunately, that's not all what he says. And of course, that's going to depend on which holy book you subscribe to. But pretty much all of them have their own issues, right? So, I mean, we could count the ways in which they have issues, but honestly, it depends on how much time you have. Seriously, I mean, it doesn't take very long to look into the history of the terrible cruelty that has been acted by folks who have been true believers of the book and have tried to follow it like to the word. It seems like every time that's happened, there's been more strife than there's been people living in prosperity. But again, that's my opinion. I don't know, Richard, you probably feel the same way.
I'd extend it a little bit further as well, and I'd say I would say personally that it's not just about what that God is proposed to be like. If there is no evidence that God exists, I think that's the more important issue. Why should we, even if it's proposed to be the most perfect, the most giving, the kindest being there is, if there's no reason to believe it actually exists in reality, why should we believe it exists? And we can kind of think about what a fictional character or a God with no evidence is like all day long, and say yes, that's wonderful attributes to hold. But if it doesn't exist and there's no good reason to think it exists, then it's kind of a moot point.
All right. Can I say something now? I'm a Muslim, okay? I converted to Islam. But when I read some of teachings of Buddha, I don't believe that Buddha was God or he was the prophet of God, whatever. When I read some of his teachings and I see they are nice, so I say, okay, they are nice, and I follow them. Or if politicians or philosophers say something nice, I say it is nice, and I accept it, I follow it. I don't have to believe that philosopher or Buddha is God or he's prophet of God. So if something nice, I don't have any issue to follow. So what's your problem?
If it was a politician, sir, if it was a politician or a philosopher, we would know that they actually exist. And that is kind of the point I was trying to make.
But even beyond that, though, Richard, even beyond that, okay, look, you're a Muslim. What does Islam teach you to treat non-Muslims, right? What is the result of me being a non-Muslim, Richard being a non-Muslim? Like, what happens to us at the end of our life?
Okay. All right. Let me read for you. Chapter 60, verse 8 says, chapter 60, verse 8, Allah does not forbid you from those who do not fight you because of your religion and do not expel you from your homes, from being righteous towards them and acting justly towards them. Indeed, Allah loves those who act justly. So this is how I have to treat you.
Oh, interesting.
I have to be just.
Interesting.
Just towards you.
So he loves those. He still loves us. So what happens to us after we die?
After you die, you will be judged according to your deeds, not your beliefs. So if you do bad deeds in this world, you will be judged according to your bad deeds. And if you
do non-Muslims get to go to heaven?
yes, non-Muslim will go to heaven definitely. If you do good deeds, I can read for you from Quran. Yes, I can read for you from Quran, chapter 7, verse 8, and the weight of deeds that they will be the truth. So those whose scale of good deeds are heavy, it is they who will be the successful. So it doesn't say Muslim, it says those, okay?
How do we define what is a good deed in the eyes of God, in which he would judge us on that? Because it seems that, what some people may think are good deeds may be different to what other people think are good deeds. And if it's down to what God thinks are good deeds, how do we decide what those things are?
It is mentioned in Quran, taking care of orphans, giving to relatives, all these types of things are good deeds. He has mentioned to be righteous towards others, to forgive people, okay? What
happens if I don't want to forgive someone? What happens if somebody does something tremendously untoward towards one of my children, and I don't want to forgive them, and they are completely in the wrong, and I choose not to forgive them for that? Is that displeasing in the eyes of God? Would that send me to hell?
No, that would not send you to hell. If you forgive, Allah says, "I'll forgive your bad deeds." Okay.
I've just said I wouldn't forgive. I've just stated that somebody did a really bad thing. Somebody did a really bad thing, and I did not forgive them for it. Would this mean that in Allah's eyes I would be going to hell?
No, you are not going to hell. Allah says that an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life. Okay, but if you forgive, it's better for you. But if you exceed, then you are a wrongdoer. Okay. So you have to be, just and judge.
But I haven't forgiven. Okay, this is the third time I've given this statement. I haven't forgiven in this instance. And you keep returning to, but if you forgive, I haven't forgiven.
I said that if you forgive, but if you don't want to forgive, okay, you are not going to be punished just because you didn't forgive. As I said, that you have to judge according, you don't have to exceed, all right? You don't have to exceed the limit. If an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a life for a life.
Let's skip back a couple of steps where I asked you what was good in the sight of Allah and what would be the thing that we were judged upon. And you said the things that he instructed us. For example, forgiving people. Okay. So in the context of the question that I asked, that is what Allah would think is a good thing and would get us into heaven. But I've stated that I will not forgive in this circumstance. So does Allah, because Allah thinks he will judge us on the things that he thinks is good, the example you gave is forgiving people. I will not forgive people. Let's answer the question that I'm asking you in the context of which I'm asking you it.
All right. And I answered you. I said that
okay, so let's use a different example then.
Yes.
Let's give a different example. Give me a different example, because this one doesn't seem to work for you. Give us a different example of something that Allah instructs us to do that would be good, that we should do to get into heaven.
For example, in the past was, freeing slaves was a good deed, giving to orphans, feeding poor, taking care of orphans, and so on. So these types of things were good. Today is also definitely not harming other people, not harming, not oppressing other people is also a good deed. Avoiding bad deeds is a good deed.
This is the entire question. We're trying to establish what is good in the eyes of Allah. Just simply telling us to avoid bad deeds doesn't really tell us anything, because we still don't know what he considers to be good and bad. We need to know his standard of good and bad in order to live up to it.
as I said, violating other people's right is a bad deed. Oppressing other people is a bad deed, okay? Avoiding these, okay, this is very simple, very clear, that if you violate other people's right, if you oppress them, that's a bad deed and you will be punished for that.
Why for the history of Islam was buying slaves, for example, and using them towards economic labor? Why is this still okay? Why is there never any dictums in any hadiths in any of the Quran that says buying people is wrong?
It doesn't say buying is wrong. It's saying freeing is good, okay? Because at that time was not the time that, it was, it's like I can say today, we say, because the fossil fuel is bad for environment, we say stop the fossil fuel. It's not working like that, okay? But Allah tried in every way to free slaves, okay? With every possibility that if you do this, you have to free a slave. If you do that, this sin or that sin, then recompensation is that you have to free a slave. So he tried to free slaves slowly. All right.
Yeah. So why does it have to be slowly, and why not right now? Like, why is this the difference here? You see what I'm saying? Like, there's compromises here in this thing. Going back to what I was originally interested in is, you're saying that non-Muslims, folks like us, we get to go to heaven as long as we understand what is good, right? If we understand what is right. And Richard was trying to get to this point too. Here's the problem. I don't agree with what Muslims think is good a lot of times. Granted, we probably do have some agreements with what is good, but the fact is what we understand as good and bad has changed throughout history. And it's still today where we have very large differences between myself and majority Muslim populations. So, one of those being LGBT people, for example. How many LGBT people today are still being killed in Muslim majority countries by Muslims, right? Like, it's a lot. Yes. That's just one example. I mean, we could talk about the history of slavery. We could talk about the history of Islamic warfare, but all that to be aside, I mean, that happens with all religions. I'm not trying to pick on one. It's just that the reason why we don't have any agreements with people who still believe in a God is because people use that God belief to do bad things all the time, every day. It's just that's probably our biggest reason why, at least it is for me, why I still choose to talk about this stuff.
All right. About killing LGBT, I say that people can, they do that. Of course, they call themselves Muslims, but that's against Islam because according to Islam, we have no right to judge people. The judgment is only on God. Okay.
And what does God judge the LGBT people for?
He says, of course, that one is up to him. That he knows best. Okay, I don't know what.
Okay, so do you think God is supportive or against LGBT people?
Yeah, he's definitely against them.
Okay. So we have our answer. So God still doesn't give a shit about LGBT people, right? Like, he still thinks that they deserve punishment, right?
Okay, so as I said, that this is up to him. He can.
Okay, so it's up to him. It's up to the great goodest thing ever to give damnation and hellfire to LGBT people, right? Like, as long as he's doing it, that's okay.
Yeah, I said that.
Okay, do you see the problem here, Muji? Do you see the inhumanity in this? You're just scapegoating your own morality. You're deferring yourself because you think this is okay. You think this is right, that somebody can give hellfire and damnation to these other people, as long as somebody else is doing it, as long as it's the greatest goodness says it's okay, that can justify your own bigotry. Well, here's what I think. I think that's wrong. I think that's a bad thing to do. I don't think you should judge people for being LGBT, and I don't think that anything should become of that because you're LGBT. I think that is wrong because I don't think it's something that you can change. And I don't think that in consensual relationships, there's anything wrong with this. But the vast majority of Muslim people do throughout history. And that is a fact. There are some that say, oh, we don't have to judge. We don't have to do this and that. The vast majority of throughout history has said that this is wrong and there should be consequences for it. And that is just a historical fact. Right?
Yes, I understand. Yes, but it will change because people in the past, they were not educated enough, and it is going to change, that we have no right to judge people. And I said that God is the most merciful and forgiving. He might forgive them, okay? I don't know that.
There's nothing
The difference
to be
is, though,
forgiven for.
yeah, I don't think there's
just said.
yeah, there's nothing to be forgiven for. It is not a crime. You are not doing anything wrong or something that is being worth punished for by just being LGBT, or even just, I would say, even go as so far as to say doing something as a homosexual. Whoa, it's crazy. I know, but yeah, there's just nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong about that. Period. It's just who people are.
Yes. Yeah, that's your decision. That's your understanding. Okay, and
sure is.
That shouldn't look. That shouldn't stop you from loving one another, loving your neighbor as you love yourself. Okay, just because God says that it is wrong,
but it stops many Muslims.
It sure does. It stops a lot of Muslims from doing it, and apparently it stops God from loving people. Right?
No, I said that God forgives people. He says, I forgive your minor bad deeds if you avoid major bad deeds, okay? Regarding slavery as well, chapter 9, verse 16 says, all tax is only for the poor and the needy and for those employed to administer it. For those
unless of partaking in active homosexual relationships, apparently.
Yeah. Also, again, we could talk about various hadiths that talk about laws in which we can govern the practice of slavery. Right. I mean, yeah, it may be that freeing someone is the ultimate ideal, but if you think slavery is bad, period, you wouldn't make any concessions for it. Right. We wouldn't have these kinds of ins and out rules that say, okay, well, you can do this and you can do that, as long as you treat them right. No, if we say something's bad, it's bad. For some reason, we don't make any concessions for folks who are LGBT. We can't say, oh, well, as long as you're in a loving relationship with somebody, that might be okay. No, apparently all of those people have to be forgiven for something. But the hadiths or the Quran never actually says somebody has to be forgiven for owning a human being. I think that's really interesting, because I think what that points out is a sign of the times more than anything. I don't think that points to an ultimate being that knows right from wrong. I think it points to human beings in history who had some understanding of what they thought was right and wrong. And that's all there is to say to it, honestly.
Okay. In Quran, Allah says that chapter 7, verse 127, Pharaoh said, we will slaughter their sons and keep their women alive. Indeed, we are subjecting them. So these are bad acts of Pharaoh to enslave people. Chapter 26, verse 22 says, Moses said, is this a favor of which you remind me that you have enslaved the children of Israel? So there are many verses that says that slavery is a bad deed by oppressors. Chapter 9, verse 60, which I was going to read for you, says
first of all, Muhammad had slaves, so let's keep that in mind. But also, again, I'm still saying this is bad. The fact that Islam can say, oh, in some cases this is bad, that's great. But the fact is, the vast in the history of Islam, slavery has not only been a practice that has been well received, but specifically endorsed within particular contexts. And you can quote different places. That's all great. I can equally find places in the Quran that specifically talk about the laws in which you should engage in as a slave owner in order to righteously own a slave. I mean, this is really the concept that's being had here. It doesn't say slavery is bam, can't have it. No, sir, can't be had. They said, okay, this is an institution that we're going to accept and we're going to regulate. Like that is just a historical fact. We can wrestle with that all day, but that's just the history of it.
Okay, I said that even for these wars that they were saying they were going to get killed. Okay, so certain things were to not only the consequences of the people accepting people, okay, and then another thing is that they should also prepare the situation. For example, I can give you an example that in India, millions of children are working, and in countries like Europe, child labor is forbidden. You cannot forbid child labor in India because they are bringing income to their family. So you have to first, it is not just laws, you have to be able to implement those laws. Okay, so you cannot say that child labor is forbidden in India. Millions of families were, go hungry because these children are providing for their families.
What about marrying children? Does God think that's bad? I'm going to go here. What about marrying children?
Bad. Yes, definitely bad. Who said that is right?
Muhammad? Wait, he just asked who says it's right. I'm saying Muhammad definitely was okay with that.
No, Muhammad didn't do that. These are fabricated.
Yes, Muhammad did do that.
Yes, he did. What do you mean?
Yes, he did.
Of course he did.
Okay. Let me see. The one who told you that Muhammad married a 6-year-old child, he said Muhammad split the moon. Why you don't believe the moon splitting? Do you believe that Muhammad?
No, of course not.
Stop.
No.
Do you know who said that Muhammad married a 6-year-old child? Do you know who it is?
It's Bukhari. Bukhari said.
No, Bukhari, yes, Bukhari. And who was he quoting? Who was Bukhari quoting?
Bukhari has fabricated a lot of hadiths.
Who was Bukhari quoting? I'm asking you a question.
What do you mean?
Who was Bukhari quoting?
He created these hadiths.
Who was Bukhari quoting?
You mean that he was quoting Prophet Muhammad? Yes. Yeah.
No, he was quoting Aisha, the person who Muhammad married when she was 6. That's who Bukhari was quoting.
Yes. I can tell you. Yes, I heard this from Prophet Muhammad. How can you verify that one? Okay, he was lying. He said that even
Bukhari is indeed one of the most forthright attributed scholars in Islam. It's a big lie because it's inconvenient, is it? Do you reject all the hadith then? Do you reject all of the hadith?
No, I don't reject all of the hadith.
No, you don't reject all of the hadith. Do you reject any that don't actually comply with the personal beliefs that you hold? Or is it only the ones that don't agree with you that you reject?
No, why you reject the hadith that says that the Prophet Muhammad split the moon? Why do you reject that one? So you apply the one, so you don't have the one which is against Islam, you accept it. But the one which is
we're not Muslims. We don't accept any of it. Like, we reject all of it. Right?
No, you said
but there's a difference between also, like, reciting historical fact versus telling a legend as well. It can also be different. To reject the beliefs of Islam doesn't necessarily make that all writings from all Muslim scholars means that there's no historicity involved in their writings. That would be insane to say something like that, right? Of course, they captured like some historical events, but they also had some beliefs mixed in there that just aren't true, right? So some of that can be more easily found out than others, like, for example, the moon splitting, right? But again, there's also lots of people who are Islamic that say, yeah, that's 100% true. So, like, I don't know. I think that's part of the problem here, right? It's like we don't even have a coherent idea of what it means to be Muslim because there's so many different interpretations, even from the very beginning of what Islam even is.
Why I reject it is because it is not mentioned in Quran. Such a great miracle is not mentioned in Quran. So that's why I reject it. If it was written in Quran, then I would, accept it because
the moon being split in two is mentioned in the Quran.
Yeah, the moon. I believe it is in the Quran.
It is. Yeah, it definitely is.
Absolutely not. No, it is absolutely not. There are, the miracle of Moses has been mentioned in many verses. Exactly.
So we got Quranic verse 54:1 that says, "The hour is at hand, and the moon has been split." This is in reference to.
It says the hour approach and the moon split. It doesn't say how many pieces. It doesn't say who split it. Okay, it is.
That's not the claim
That's
you
not the
just
point.
made. You just contradicted your own
Yeah.
claim. You said it wasn't in the Quran. You didn't say
No,
it wasn't
it is
in the
not.
Quran that it specified how
Listen
many
to me.
pieces it was split into.
I said Prophet Muhammad splitting the moon is not in Quran. That's about the hour. When the hour comes, yes, everything will be split. Everything, not only moon, the earth, the sun, everything, the entire universe will be split, destroyed. It doesn't say that it's split to half. Okay, it doesn't say it was split in half.
So far, Muji, listen just a second. So far during this call, we've established from you that the most reliable hadith that we have aren't true because they disagree with something that you think is immoral. We've established that the Muslims who do things that you don't agree with aren't real Muslims because they don't agree with you. And we've also established that things that are in the Quran, you think are not in the Quran. So we are going to move on from this call very, very shortly. But before we do, I'd just like to say that I think, me and Dan aren't Muslim, but I think it is you, sir, who needs to go and do. I'm going to use the phrase, everyone. You need to go and do your research as to what is actually in the Quran and part of the Islamic tradition, because you seem to have much less knowledge about it than me and Dan, who are both non-Muslim. As I'm going to let you go, I suggest you do that. Thank you for your call. When you've done that research, please come back and give us another call. Dan, that was very interesting.
No, that wasn't interesting. I mean, so it always comes down to this, and this isn't the first time this pattern has happened, where it's like, why are you against people who believe in God? And then we say, well, because people who believe in God have also problematic beliefs X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, well, I don't have these problematic beliefs. And it's like, okay, that's fine. But other people who do believe in God also have these problematic beliefs. So we are against that. And by the way, you do have problematic beliefs. If you are saying, for example, that, the indictment of LGBT people is, up for God to decide, not me, you're basically still saying that, yeah, you think it's wrong. You just are going to let God be the executioner in this trial. You still think that it's a legitimate court here. You're just letting God be the judge instead of you. So, okay, that doesn't take away the problem, which is that you think being LGBT is somehow inherently wrong. And you also, especially when it comes to Islam, you also get into these things. Same thing with Christianity. How many times have we talked about slavery in the Bible with Christianity, right? Islam, of course, same thing happens. And you also see Muslims who will deny the marriage of Aisha at 6 years old, which a variety of Muslim scholars do attest to being a historical fact. But regardless, it doesn't matter, because we come up with these modern understandings of what it means to be right and wrong, and you try to have to directly apply it to your religion, because you find out that, there's some problematic stuff in there, that being child marriage, right? So yeah, it's a tale as old as time. Doesn't matter if it's Islam, doesn't matter if it's Christianity, doesn't matter if it's Buddhism. You find this across all the major world religions, and it never ends. It never will, Richard. So it's fun stuff.
I absolutely agree, Dan. So we have been telling you about our upcoming annual back cruise on Saturday, August the 26th, 2023, for a few weeks now, and we'd like to announce that tickets have sold out. But there is still a chance that you may be able to join us, because we do have a ticket waitlist that you can sign up for just in case there are cancellations. To join the waitlist, visit tiny.cc/backcruise. For those of you with tickets, you'll be joining the Atheist Community of Austin for a fun summer evening on the water, conversing with like-minded free thinkers like Forrest Valkai, J. Mike, Christy Powell, and other hosts and crew of our various shows. That is going to be so much fun. You can support the ACA as well, and there are many ways to support Talk Heathen and the ACA. You can get a new limited edition T-shirt which says Satan, the lesser of two evils. Visit tiny.cc/merchaca to get them now. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, comment below on your favorite caller, and you can become a channel member. Click the join button below the video. You'll get custom chat emotes, and you will help perpetuate the mission of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Community of Austin. Send a super chat with a question or comment, and we will read as many as we are able to do. We have some great calls lining up. Dan,
Yes, we do.
I chose the first one. I'm going to let you choose the next one.
Man. Okay, so maybe this one will be an interesting one. Let's see. We have, and I'm going to try to pronounce your name, Natalka, calling in from New York. Natalka, you are live on Talk Heathen. What's up?
Not much. How you guys doing today?
Doing all
very well,
right.
thank you. How
How
you?
can we help you?
Yeah, and it's pronounced Nataka.
Nataka. Okay, I had a screener note that said Natalka with an L, but Nataka, I will remember that. Thank you.
Nataka.
What's going on?
You're most welcome. So I wanted to talk about free will today,
Okay.
kind of from an interesting perspective, and take it down. Let's see if we can take it down a really interesting route. First of all, I'd like to get if you two could go over, and I wanted to get the English bloke's name. Is it correct? Am I correct in saying your name is John? Is that correct, sir?
It's Richard, and I'm Scottish.
Yeah, he is a Scottish man.
I always give you the accent.
I'm half English, half Scottish.
He's actually it's actually Ricardo. Ricardo G is what we call him.
Just go with whatever you want. It's fine. I understand. I understand that we're all the same to you Americans.
It's all this. Yeah, it's that American privilege. Okay. Think about Shrek. Okay, he's the same as the guy who did the Shrek voice. So, you know.
Right. One of these days, I have a theory about the no true Scotsman fallacy that would I think really shed some light on it. It has nothing to do with free will, but I think you'd find it quite interesting.
Yeah, so what is it you want to talk about today, free will, and what did you want to ask me specifically? Go on.
Okay, well, Dan can chime in on this too if he wants. But first, I have my theory of free will, but I wanted to see if you two could run down the ideas, the current themes, like the current ideas of free will, like determinism versus totalitarian and other concepts, like maybe give some definitions, and then I'll throw out my idea, and you guys can share if you guys think we have free will or what type, because if we don't have any free will, I mean, do we have free will enough to have autonomy over our own bodies? And then what about our ideas and what we choose to think? And so,
okay, so go. Let's start at the beginning. I think that you asked for a dumbed down version. So for me, there's three main ideas. There's libertarian free will, which means we can act freely. There is determinism, which means that we're kind of whatever we don't make the decisions, they are kind of made for us via past events that have happened and past circumstances, and we are just reacting to that. And although it appears like we're making the decision, we're not actually, we don't really have a choice. And there is compatibilism, which is kind of a mixture between the two. Where I sit on it, I'm not entirely sure. This is one of those questions I've thought about a lot, and I don't really have an answer to. If you watched, I think it was the Atheist Experience last week, there was a lot of talk on this conversation, and and different ideas. And I think it was J. Mike and Secularity who were hosting, and they were kind of going down the deterministic route. I'm not sure. I'm genuinely not sure. I think if I said anything, I would probably fall somewhere between hard determinism and compatibilism, but I don't know where. I really don't have an honest answer to the question because I've not decided. Looking at the different ideas and the different avenues, I can't see that I'm convinced of any particular position on it as at the moment, and it might change, but at the moment, I think I fall somewhere within that kind of region. Dan.
Yeah, so to give an entire taxonomy of the positions of free will is beyond the scope of what a call-in show like ours could offer. I think Richard gave a pretty good summation. I mean, there's like various subcategories and stuff in between there. But what most people are interested in when they have this conversation is between some version of determinism and some version of non-determinism, right? With various categories in between there. So like I would fall, if we're talking about it in that binary, I would definitely fall into the determinist camp, specifically like a physicalist sort of ontology, if you will, about this. So like I do believe that our will, our sense of consciousness, and our sense of decision making is the result of physical systems, and therefore it can be changed through physical systems. So does that mean that I have a conscious understanding, or can I change the things that I can do? Maybe. I'm kind of with Richard on this. I'm not 100% sure. If I would say definitively yes, then I suppose that would make me some sort of compatibilist, right? This idea that, yeah, even though we're the result of physical phenomenon, we do have some sort of control within that phenomenon. What I like to think of is like computers, right? Like we know computers are completely physical. There's very few people out there that would say, oh yeah, there's some supernatural stuff happening with computers. But we're able to change the output of computers all the time because we change the inputs. And I kind of think that's kind of like what people are, right? We change our inputs in ways that are so intuitive and so natural to us. We don't really think about it as being in a physical system, but it ultimately is. So whether that means something in the grand scheme of things, whether the universe was determined from the very beginning, I don't know. But I do lean towards more of an understanding that we are physical systems. We're the result of physical processes. And so any changes that I make, whether it's my will, whether it's something I can ultimately control or not, is going to be something physical, not something supernatural, not the result of a soul, not the result of anything like that. So there you go. That's my take.
Yeah. Well, to jump on that, Dan, and I don't know if you've ever thought about that idea of free will as juxtaposed to a computer system before, but if you were thinking on your feet, kudos to you, because that was an extremely good thought and an analogy. And to kind of bump back on that and to add to that, I'd like to say, like, my theory of free will kind of works like some people have a level of determinism and compatibilism going on. Some people operate maybe to a certain level of what is the free will, totalitarian free will. Some people are totally determinists, like maybe sociopaths and psychopaths that really can't control their actions, but are controlling their actions to a such surgical degree that is ridiculous. Because it's like sociopaths almost have this level of control yet non-control going on about them.
Well, I kind of disagree on that, because
Yeah.
if you ever look at the statistics, you'll actually find that many psychopaths are actually surgeons and things. And they really are, because it actually helps them to kind of disassociate from the kind of thing they're doing. I don't think they're sat there like shaking uncontrollably internally, struggling with whether they should carry out the action or not. I just don't think it works in reality like that.
Going back to your metaphor, right? Here's what I would say about this is that folks who struggle with psychopathy, right? And you have to remember that it's, there's going to be people out there, even probably listening to this, who have psychopathy. It doesn't mean that they're going to be murderers and killers, right? But those who struggle with psychopathy struggle with empathy, right? They struggle with that. And so when you have that struggle, that means empathy is going to be less of an input in your physical systems, right? We're still physical systems. We have various inputs. I care about what Richard has to say about me, so I'm going to be nice to Richard. And he's also the producer of the show, so he could kick me off at any second. And you know what? I like being on the show, so I'm going to do things that are going to benefit my interests that also benefit Richard's interests. Someone who struggles with psychopathy may not consider Richard's interests. So that input isn't going to be as strong in their own physical system, but they're just as physical of a system as we are, right? They're not like inherently different or even more of a computer or more, cold than we are in that particular sense, right? It's just that their levels of inputs are going to be different than ours. That's how I would define it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it possible? Like basically? So what I'm trying to say is like, for you, if I entered like the one input for you and the same input for me, because we might have a certain level of free will that might differ from ours because of our upbringing and everything that's already been inputted into our systems, maybe we'll get different results going
Yes.
outward.
I mean, we will certainly weight things differently, right? Another example of this is someone who is autistic, right? Someone who is autistic might be more sensitive to sounds, might be more sensitive to other kinds of things. That's going to be weighted differently in their physical systems than my physical systems, right? Like, I think you can apply this to a lot of things, but ultimately, I'm not sure if that. I mean, it has effects on our decision making. Whether you say that means that we don't have free will or not, that's up to you, right? I don't know if that's what that truly means, but it does affect our decision making, and it is going to affect our will. But the point is, we all have this, right? It's not that some people are more robotic than others in that sense. We're all just physical systems with different weighted inputs, if that makes sense.
Right. Now, since both the gentlemen hosting tonight, Dan and Richard, both have a kind of almost a mix of deterministic and compatibilism going on, yet you still would say you didn't know, yet some other hosts would say they're total determinists. I think some other hosts at the ACA would answer this question a far different way, because like if some hosts are total determinists, they would and ask, well, then I don't think they would say, well, we really have decisions. I don't think they would describe it as a decision-making process, because if we don't have free will, we're not really making any decisions.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair. I mean, again, they're gonna describe different. They're gonna have weight towards different philosophical concepts than we would, right? So, and that may be the result of their own upbringing, their own ideas, their own philosophical training, and how they understand the world. So, yeah. I don't see a problem with that. That's just a brute fact. We're gonna see things differently.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Thanks for taking my call, guys. I'm hoping you guys really enjoyed the call, because as I did.
Yeah, absolutely. I was excited, to be honest. I was expecting it to be a bit more combative.
I thought so too.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
And guys, yeah, I thought I'd go easy on you guys with the last call. You guys handled that last call quite brilliantly.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey,
we're going to let you go.
Really quickly, just really quickly, I want to share my really quick theory on the no true Scotsman theory with Richard. It'll be really.
Oh yes. Wait, actually, yes. Do that. I was going to say no, we don't have time, but now, we have to do it. Yes, please do.
Yeah, not even a minute. So, no true Scotsman. I don't care about what they're eating in their, if they're putting sugar in their porridge or not. But no true Scotsman was born out of prima nocta. That's for goddamn certain. No offense to you, Richard.
No, not at all. Thank you for the call. Please do call back again if you have anything else you want to talk to us about. I enjoyed that. I was like I say, I was expecting to be butting heads a little bit more on that one.
If you had denied it, Richard, I would have said that's a no true Scotsman. Richard is not a true Scotsman. So his denial of it doesn't actually. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's have a look. You can support us on Patreon. You can go to tiny.cc/patreon, and we now have a channel that houses all of the shows on the ACA in audio podcast form. You can visit tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. And because I'm over here in dear old Blighty, I don't often get chance to, especially Dan's show, Truth Wanted. I don't always get to watch that live. So sometimes I will listen to that on the podcasts on my way to work, and I will catch up with that. And you can too, if the Mr. Souls live, or if you just prefer listening to podcasts, go to that platform, tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. You can become part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBTHG. And also, in case you didn't know, Talk Heathen has a TikTok, and I was on there live before this very show talking to people. We have some good shows on there on a weekly basis, and if you weren't aware of that, go and join up. Go and follow us on TikTok and see all the good stuff.
Yeah.
Subscribe and join the free show every week on Talk Heathen. I really enjoy doing the TikTok stuff, and I know we have some. We have some Richard, great hosts on there doing stuff.
It's really cool. I need to do. I haven't actually done a TikTok live before the show, and I probably should do that. Maybe next time I can be the one to do it. But we have like 1 million followers right now.
We do have 1 million.
Crazy how many we have. Yeah.
So we're going to take Mike from Washington, who has answered the poll question, and he is saying that God is not evil. Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
What do you got for us, Mike?
Oh, I don't believe God is evil.
Okay. Well, why is that?
Justice. Well, he's God of justice.
Okay.
Is it
So he's not capable of being evil?
Not the way you describe it.
Okay.
how would we describe evil?
Yeah.
Anything you don't want done to yourself.
Okay. So how does God describe evil?
Doing to others that you'd have others doing to you. Love thy neighbors yourself. That's back in Leviticus. And
Okay.
and the way you just described it, the two greatest commandments, you familiar with that? Love God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And the second is like it, which all the law and the prophets are hung, and that's love thy neighbors yourself, or do unto others if you have others do unto you.
Okay, so what's an example of something that I would think is evil and that God wouldn't think is evil, or maybe vice versa?
Well, I know there's something that you don't think is evil is mutilating kids, injecting them with hormones and testosterone and
Wait. You think so God isn't okay with that?
No.
Okay, so why does he let it happen?
Grooming kids for LGBTQ. You think God's for the gay community?
Well, what happens in hell? I mean, is it not torturous? Is it not like, even worse than what you just described? Like, is he not okay with?
In the end, it's destroyed. The soul is destroyed. I don't know what scripture it is at the moment, but it says, do not be afraid.
So he kills people.
Of him who can kill the body. Just a second. Do not be afraid of him who can destroy the body, but be afraid of him who can destroy both body and soul in hell.
So he kills people.
Oh, he's not ever for any good reason. For not a
Okay,
good
but he kills people.
Nobody.
Because I believe you just said that we should be treating others like they would want to treat us, and I don't want to kill children, but you're saying God actually kills children all the time.
Well, anything before any child before the age of consent is their soul is saved. As David.
What's the age of consent?
God determines that.
So you don't know what it is. So how do you know that there's an age of consent?
Well, I think it's 13. What the Jews.
Okay, so God kills 14-year-olds, and that's okay.
Huh?
God kills 14-year-olds, and that's all right.
Tell me who murders the 14. You said 14 years old. Now run that by
Yeah.
me again.
Well, okay, so you're saying there's an age of consent, and as long as the kid is old enough, right, they have a decision whether to accept God or not. So if there's a kid that's 14 who doesn't accept God and he dies, God can just destroy their souls, right? And that's justice.
No, injustice. No, it's according to one's heart. Like somebody who hasn't heard the gospel message, he'll be dealt with as the way he's dealt with other people on his planet.
Okay, but I'm saying, what if they've heard the gospel message and they're 14 years old and then they die? Because undoubtedly that's happened, right? There's 7 billion people on Earth just today. That's not including everybody that's ever lived. There's got to be some 14-year-olds that have rejected God and have died. They get their souls destroyed, and that's justice?
Well, they'll be dealt justly in.
Okay,
their
and that means destroying their souls,
either
right?
Their soul will be destroyed, or they'll enter paradise or heaven.
Okay, so is that justice then? If a 14-year-old child who rejects God gets their soul destroyed, that's justice.
What God says is justice is justice.
Okay, so it sounds like your sense of justice is just listen to me and do what I have to say as God of the universe, or else you get destroyed for all of eternity. And earlier, I believe your criticism of our sense of justice was, if you don't do what I like, then that's evil. It sounds like that's the literal exact same thing that God says. So what's the difference?
To make children before the age of consent, that they can decide to have their breasts removed, puberty blockers, and all that stuff, and then make them pray for gay people. Do you think that's all right?
You seem to be sticking to a very strange, narrow kind of margin subject when there's so much we could talk about.
That is interesting.
Earlier, I believe you said that evil was that which we would not want done to ourselves. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mike, would you want your children and yourself to be slaughtered? It's a simple yes or no question. It doesn't really require much thinking about.
Of course not.
No, so would you say that somebody who commands whole families to be slaughtered is evil then? Via that definition of it?
No, of course not.
So they're not evil for commanding that.
Is it wrong to defend your country?
Right. Let's start that again. If somebody commands, I've not mentioned defending your country whatsoever. Would you say that slaughtering an entire people, whole sets of families, is evil? Men, women, and children, infants.
Are you talking about Amorites?
Right. Just answer the question, and we'll get to what we're talking about shortly.
Well, I'm going to explain that from God's point of view. He said the reason why the Jews were wandering around for
we're not. No, we're talking about your point of view, because you stated categorically, I seem to remember, and you seem to have just agreed with it, that evil is that which we would not want done to ourselves. Is that correct?
Well, look, I would expect to be shot if I was going to rob somebody and they had a gun.
Why is it so difficult to answer a very, very simple question, Mike? Mike, is evil that which we wouldn't want done to ourselves?
No, that's too simple.
No, it's not too simple. It is the definition you gave of evil earlier on in this very call. You now seem to be backtracking, and I'll tell you why you're backtracking. You're backtracking because you have realized at this point, Mike, I will mute you. I will use a mute button if you don't let me finish. Right. You're backtracking because you have realized that under your own definition, your God is evil. This is why you're now backtracking and you're saying it's not simple. If it's not that simple, you shouldn't have given that definition. Me and Dan didn't give you that definition. That's the one you offered to us. You said evil is that which we wouldn't want done to ourselves. That is the thing you stated.
Right.
So that is the case, because 2 minutes ago you said it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me explain though. Elucidate here. You're
running rings round you? I know. That's what I do.
What?
Mike. If God told you to kill somebody, right or wrong? Wrong. So if God tells you need to murder somebody, like that's wrong, categorically.
He doesn't tell you to murder. He didn't tell me to murder anybody.
Well, I mean,
to murder anybody. Anybody who lives by the sword dies by the sword.
Okay, yeah, but one, I mean, Richard's already made allusions to passages in the Old Testament, but even beyond that, why does God get to kill people? What's the difference?
He's our creator, and he knows the heart of man. He knows. Look at.
But doing unto others, you should do unto others what they should want unto you, right?
Well, hey, would you kill Jeffrey Dahmer if you knew what his future was?
Sir, the Midianites were not Jeffrey Dahmer.
Also,
do you know what the Midianites' crime was? The Midianites' crime.
I didn't say you were.
Listen, we're getting off topic.
Mike, the Midianites' crime, sir, was worshipping other gods,
Yeah.
worshipping idols in the eyes of God. This means that God thought it just to murder them for that crime and their children. So in this world now, we have many millions of people who do not follow the God that you follow. They follow different gods and worship different gods. So by that very standard, it is just under that system for all of those people to be commanded by God to be gone out and murdered. Is that correct or not?
No, it's not their God we're talking about. We're talking about the God of the Bible, the God of Abraham.
I know we're talking about the God of the Bible.
Huh?
Our backup host is sat at the minute with his head in his hands, shaking his head in despair because of the knots you're tying yourself in. I'm going to let Dan take over for just a minute.
Well, I'm more interested in this core idea of what's right and wrong, because if you have a God that violates this idea of right and wrong, I can't call him a just God, right? A just God, I think you would agree, or maybe you don't. Tell me if you don't. Is one that follows a core just set of principles, right? And it's the violation of said principles that we would call them unjust. I mean, would you agree that that's what would make a just God, or do you think that there's something else there?
Here's the difference. You aren't God. I'm not God. But God knows the man's heart, the man's thoughts. You don't. I don't.
Okay. So what? The fact that he knows our hearts, what does that mean? How does that make him good? Satan presumably knows our thoughts and knows our hearts. That's why he tempts us to do things. Does that make him God? Does that make him just?
He doesn't tempt us. He doesn't tempt anybody.
Wait, what do you mean?
It's your flesh. It's your flesh.
What? Wait, what are you talking about?
It's your choice.
It's my choice. No, it's not my choice whether to go to heaven or hell, right? God decides that, right? He's literally judge.
Yeah, but you don't want to.
Okay, so it's not my choice. No, it's not my choice. You just said it's my choice, but it's not. It's literally God's choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not my choice. So God can decide on a whim and just say, actually, you know what, Dan? You're going to hell. And you would say that's just. He doesn't have to give a reason, right? You would just say that's just.
You're giving the one right now. You don't believe in him. You don't believe in his commandments, his judgments.
Right.
So
I don't believe in his commandments, so I deserve to be eternally destroyed. Never have my friends or family ever see me again because I'm on a talk show on a Sunday afternoon saying God's not real. And you think that's just.
Well, hey, it's appointed once per man to die and then judgment. You can talk it over with God.
This is riddles. This is riddles. Mike, you don't talk like this in your daily life, right? You don't talk like this to your friends and family. If your neighborhood boy stole from you, you wouldn't start talking in these riddles. You'd say, hey, man, that's wrong. I need to get this back. Because this is very simple. But for some reason, when it comes to the complete destruction of human beings for all of eternity, we have to go into these weird circles and talk in these weird riddles about what makes something right or wrong, because you know this is fucking wrong, Mike. You know it's wrong, right? It's wrong to just eternally destroy people for just acts of speech, right? I'm not Jeffrey Dahmer, Mike. I didn't fucking kill people. I'm just saying I don't think God is real, and for some reason that justifies either one, eternal torment, or two, eternal destruction. How the fuck does that make it right? What's just about that?
Well, who do you? I just told you how. When you die, you get to talk it over with God.
Yeah, because God says so, right? Because he's the fucking dictator of heaven, right?
Okay.
And we have to all hail the great dictator, Mike. Is that your reasoning? Just whatever the dictator says goes?
He's a good father. Have you had a father figure?
I do have a father, Mike. What about him?
What's a good father like? You know what
a good father doesn't say, do what I say because I said so. A good father tells you why something is right or wrong, Mike.
A good father will say, do this because this will happen otherwise.
Yes, a good father will tell you the consequences of his actions, but consequences are not the result of a father destroying you for eternity. Again, I really need to make this point clear, right? My father is a mortal man. He has a mortal understanding of the world, and he's going to do what he thinks is best for his son. What's best for me isn't my eternal destruction because I said I don't believe in God. My Father doesn't have any control over that. The God of heaven could easily say, oh, I'm here, actually. Here's good evidence for me to exist. And that'd be fine. I would say, okay, he exists. He could be an asshole, but at least he exists. There's a lot of people that are assholes and exist. But God doesn't do that, Mike. Because he's not real. I don't know what to tell you.
Is the world a good place to live?
Depends on if you're privileged enough to live in a first world country or not, for the most part. And even then, actually, that's not true. There's plenty of people that have great lives in places outside the first world. It depends on where you live and who you are and what race you are and what class you are born into. Basically, it's better for some people than others, unfortunately.
That's crawdad. You do crawdad good.
What?
You do crawdad good.
What? What does that mean? I do crawdad's good. What?
Yeah. Anyway,
I don't know what the fuck that means.
Why not?
Mike, here's the deal. Be a man about this. Ooh, I'm using the be a man card. Let's be a man about this. Do I deserve hell? Do I deserve eternal suffering? Yes or no?
At the moment, you do. You can repay.
Okay. And why is that? Because God says I do?
No. What?
Why do I deserve it?
You not to steal, to treat others as you want to be treated. You think you should be able to rob 7-Elevens for your sustenance and put people out of work because you're too lazy to. You enjoy stealing.
Why the fuck are we talking about stealing, Mike? I'm not stealing anything. I'm just talking about me. Just me, Objectively Dan, here talking to you.
Society can't. You can't. If everybody decides to be a thief, society won't work. There's a reason why there's not murder.
Talking in riddles. I don't know.
And
Richard, I'm kind of done with this conversation. I don't know about you.
I think me too. Mike, go and have a think about things because you've tied yourself up quite a lot during this conversation. And to be honest, when you end by kind of straw manning Dan and pointing out that he's going to go to hell because he thieves, and I don't believe that to be true.
I don't think that's true.
And even if he did, he wouldn't be going to hell because of it. Mike, give us a call back another time when you've actually thought about what you're saying rather than just coming on and saying stuff. It makes conversations much easier. Mike had a tendency to tie himself up in riddles a little bit during that call. Yeah, but
sorry, Richard. I did.
Go on.
You did. No, I did kind of take over there. You know what? I do appreciate it because when I tell someone, hey, when I said be a man, what I really want to say is like, hey, tell me that I'm going to go to hell and that I deserve it. Because like 90% of the time, people will be wishy-washy about it. At least he says I deserve hell. Now, he said I deserve hell because I'm stealing or something. Honestly, I didn't really catch that part. But you know what? Like, that's the thing, right? The point with this is everyone has their own sense of justice, and their own sense of justice most of the time is in very much contradiction with God's sense of justice. And just pointing this out somehow really brings out that cognitive dissonance. We're so easy to say, oh, yes, all these people deserve hell and torment. And suddenly when you put a face on it and says, oh, so I should just go there like right now if I die, that's just suddenly it's like, oh, well, it's this kind of wishy-washy answer. But anyway,
indeed it was. I'm slightly disappointed that you explained yourself because here was me sat here thinking you were going all alpha male on us as well.
I know I didn't.
Be a man.
I immediately regretted my word choice because there's connotations to that phrase now that you can't. That anyway, it's a whole thing. I'm gonna start like talking about the red pill and stuff. This is the start of my downfall. It's gonna be awful.
We do have many people on the lines, but before we get to any more callers, I'm just going to give a shout out to our top 5 patrons who Dan is very kindly going to read out for us.
Oh, I get to read the patrons. Okay, let's do it. So number 1 on our list is the inevitable Dingleberry Jackson. Number 2 is Ayame. Number 3 is Dion Lachey. Number 4 is Oops, all singularity. And number 5 is Davor Valjean. Thank you guys so much for donating. And of course, our honorable mention this week goes to Benjamin Ravita. Thank you all for donating on the Talk Heathen Patreon. You're awesome. You're cool. And you're good looking. also. I can say that definitively.
Inevitably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Inevitably, through your patronage, it makes you immensely good looking as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
The ACA wants you to know what's going on in our community. And for that, we've got an updated website. Head to www.atheist-community.org, where you can learn about the organization itself, its policies, and how you can get involved. And we want to hear from you. We want to know what you liked, what you thought was effective, and more importantly, what you thought we could do better. So email us at tv@atheist-community.org and let us know. We are going to jump straight in to another one. And I don't know which one to take. Dan, have you got any preference? Because we've got so many calls.
We've got so many callers. You want to talk to Ahmed?
Let's go with Ahmed, yeah.
Ahmed in Bangladesh. Let's do it. I don't think I've talked to a caller from Bangladesh on this program.
Ahmed, how are you doing? Brother. Hello, how are you?
I'm great.
Ahmed,
Peace be upon you.
We're doing great, Ahmed. Thanks for calling from Bangladesh. I don't know what time zone is there, but it's probably really crazy relative to ours. So tell us what you got.
Yes. Can you repeat?
Oh, yeah. So I see from the call screener that you have something you want to talk about involving scientific miracles in the Quran. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I want to talk about them. Quran chapter number 21, verse number 30. As Allah says, have the disbelievers not seen that the heavens and the earth were joined entity, and we separate them and made everything from water, every living thing from water. Will they not believe? So Allah here is talking about the Big Bang, and
is he now?
Is he?
Is he? Let's start there. Where?
Allah
which part of that? Which Ahmed? Which
where does he say it's the Big Bang?
Specifically to the Big Bang, because they're in the Big Bang at the singularity. The heavens and the earth weren't joined. The earth wasn't there.
Yeah, and there wasn't water either.
So Allah is talking about He created every living thing from water.
No, let's go back. Let's go back to the previous point, not jump forward. Let's stick to the criticism we've just made that is definitively wrong, that the Quran states.
All right.
The heaven and the earth were not joined in the singularity at the Big Bang. So the Quran is wrong. What is your response to that?
The space, the matter, everything were joined in the singularity.
No, everything wasn't joined in the singularity. Everything was potential in the singularity. They weren't separate entities which were joined together. The earth wasn't there, joined to the heavens. They didn't exist at that time. They were not joined. The Quran is wrong.
No, I think you're reinterpreting it.
No, I am not.
I think you're reinterpreting it.
What you are doing is called post hoc rationalization, where you take something which is written, and when some further knowledge comes along, you apply that further knowledge to that thing which is written. But in this case, it is not the case. I can give you a pretty decent description of what happened during the process of the Big Bang. Can you tell me where the Quran tells us that process happening?
Never mentioned such a thing.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
So, Quran never mentioned that singularity or the Big Bang.
Yes, I know the Quran never mentions the singularity or the Big Bang. This is the problem. This is why you're post hoc rationalizing it into there. Do you agree that mentioning? Do you agree that saying that the earth and the heavens were joined together is not a description of the singularity?
Yes.
Yes, you do. So you're called in to say that the scientific miracles in the Quran, the first one you gave us was that the Quran mentions the Big Bang, and you're now recounting that. You're saying actually you're wrong on that point.
Yes, I think.
Right, that's very
Okay.
good. Thank you. I appreciate that. That
right.
was relatively simple.
Maybe we just need to move on then.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think
go and have a look at the other rather than going through lots and lots of different claims. Go back and look at the other ideas you think you've got about the Quran and science, and just look at them yourself and talk yourself through them, like we've just had that conversation. Hamid, I'm going to let you go. I really, really appreciate the forthrightness and honesty.
Yeah, I don't know if there's
I genuinely do.
I don't know if there's a language barrier there or what. But regardless, there are many Muslims that make the claim, oh, look, the Quran, particularly the Quran, makes these claims about science, and we can know the Quran is truth based on the scientific claims that it makes, and how science has like later been able to prove the truth of these claims. This is just one of many that are used in this. So it's just not true. That's not how the Big Bang talks about the creation of the universe. It doesn't talk about the earth and the heavens being one single mass or anything like that. It's a little bit more complicated than that. So, yep.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in with another call. Let's jump in with Marissa, who wants to talk about the possibility of a higher power. Marissa, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Really good, thank you. So, what is it specifically you want to talk about?
Well, I've grown up on television. I'm not gonna lie, give you a little background as far as how I've come to where I'm at right now. I grew up Christian with a Celtic pagan mother. I grew up in the South, so I was surrounded by a lot of Southern Baptists, Jehovah's Witness, and I was even I was so hardcore into it that I was going door to door asking, "Have you heard the good news?" So very, very hardcore Christian, and whenever it came to death, the loss of a loved one, nothing ever solidly stuck. You know, I couldn't accept the whole it's God's will, that sort of thing. You know.
Yeah.
And so I started opening up my mind, and I started talking to my mother about it, and she introduced me to paganism. But even then, whenever it came to death, nothing made sense. There was always some vague excuse as to why things happen the way they happen. Everything happens for a reason. And I can't accept that. And so at this point in my life, I'm bordering on theism and atheism, where like I don't think that there's anything really out there, but if there is, this is the possibility, and that's the topic that I'm trying to get to today.
Okay, so I've got a response to this, but I was never theist. So before I kind of give you my opinion, I'm going to pass you on over to Dan, who's taken that journey himself.
Yeah,
and can speak from experience.
Look, you say this, so you say there's a possibility that theism could be true. And I would agree that if we're just talking about general theism, we're not talking about like Christianity in particular, but theism, I mean, there could maybe be a possibility that it's true, sure. But what do you think the likelihood of that possibility is? If you could put like a number on it, what do you think you are at right now?
I'm one of those people that gives percentages on everything, even though I know absolutely no statistics. So honestly, the possibility of there being something out there, yeah, I give it a good 25% possibility, simply because I have to put some sort of reason behind everything. That's just the way my mind works, you know?
Sure. And I agree. I think it's good to put reasons. It's good to have reasons for why you believe the things that you do, right? So the next question that immediately follows this then, that's something that I would ask myself, and what I would recommend you ask yourself, because it sounds like you're already doing this, is what would raise this probability, what would raise this percentage, and what would lower it? So what would be an example of something that would raise this, would make you more confident in the idea that theism is true?
A true spiritual experience, such as anything from as beautiful as a vivid dream with an angel that pops in, like with Joseph telling, or with the angel telling Joseph that Mary is coming to be pregnant and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
All the way into as bad as something like the idea of stigmata. Like, if I were to experience something like that, I would truly believe that there is a higher deity, a true conscious and active deity somewhere out there.
Okay. I think that's a great example, right? Personally experiencing something inexplicable might raise your personal probability as to theism being true, right? So conversely, I would like to know, what would lower that chance for you, if you can think of anything?
Just time, honestly. Just the lack of evidence, the lack of proof.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. So at this point, I can't tell you what you should or shouldn't believe, or what you can or can't believe. I mean, I'll give you my opinion, right? And Richard can give you yours. Here's why we lack that belief, right? Here's why, even despite some of which some of the examples you've given of what could make theism true, why we still resound calling ourselves something that's not theism. Could be agnosticism, could be atheist. Different hosts have different opinions for themselves, what they want to call ourselves, but none of us call ourselves theists. And the biggest reason why is because, for the exact examples that you mentioned, the stuff that would likely make theism more true, we haven't experienced for ourselves, right? There's no hosts at the ACA that have had any personal inexplicable experiences that they think makes theism more likely than not. We haven't seen any miracles. We haven't seen God talk to us in our dreams or outside of our dreams, right? It just hasn't happened to us. And when we look at other people that have made those claims, we have some questions, right? There's questionable circumstances for why these things have happened. And ultimately, there hasn't been very definitive evidence or definitive arguments that have made theism more likely than non-likely. So that's where I've ended up today. I used to be someone who was a theist. I used to be someone who was a deeply devout Christian. But after really looking at this evidence and realizing, there's a lot of different faith claims that we could point to. How do we know which one's real? I realize I don't have any reason to believe one faith claim over another faith claim. And so I've kind of renounced all that and have tried to make as little faith claims as possible and see where that gets me. So that's where I'm at. And that's where, what I would suggest to you as well, if you're interested, is say, hey, what are some stuff that we can put all of our money into versus not, and where do we go from there? Because that's really the best you can do for yourself. So anyway, that's my line of questioning, Richard. So there you go. I know you passed it over to me, so passing it back to you.
I think kind of along the same lines. Yeah, I think. Am I correct in thinking that you said, Mary said that if we didn't have evidence against something, or we should have evidence against something, to not consider that it's true?
Oh, absolutely not.
Right. Okay.
If someone presents an idea, I don't believe at all that we should reject it. there has to be some level of skepticism with everything.
Yeah.
To what level would you put that skepticism, though? If somebody suggested something along the lines of a kind of a statue floating around Venus with a nice miner's helmet on, who could flap the feet and fly through space like people swim in the sea, would you think that is something that should be entertained?
Personally, no. But there are those out there that believe in a giant spaghetti flying monster that came out of a volcano. I mean, and I personally think that's silly, but if that were the case, hey, if you come up with proof, I'll believe in it.
I'm just trying to establish kind of what parameters you're setting on possibility. That's all I'm trying to establish at the moment. And something you said earlier regarding, if someone had a dream, you'd find that kind of compelling as evidence. What would you do if somebody had a dream that was totally convincing to them, that the angels visited them and the angels had come from Yahweh and were telling them that Jesus was true and Jesus was God and that Christianity was the true religion, and yet you had somebody else who was telling you that they'd had a dream that said Vishnu had come to them in the dream and Hinduism was indeed the true religion and all other religions were false. How would you assess which one of those were likely true over the other? What kind of yardstick would you use? Because you've said you'd find that kind of thing compelling. But if two people were having... you didn't say that. Sorry, what was it you said? Because I don't want to misrepresent you. So if you just repeat what it was you did say.
Well, no, honestly, I wasn't trying to contradict what you were saying. That is what led me into believing for a short time, or at least feeling for a short time. I'm very, very touchy about the word belief, because belief is a very, very strong word, and it gets people killed. It gets loved ones hurt, So an idea that I had there for a while was based out of omnism, where it's been the same group of higher beings, just different cultures of humanity had different names for them because of different languages, different ways of thinking, not to mention the influence of the leaders of that time. History is written by the winners of war.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I'm kind of confused I'm kind of confused about what you're telling me you would find compelling. I'm a bit kind of stuck on, and it may be me. It probably is me, but I'm kind of stuck on what you're telling me that you would find compelling for a belief in something. Is there a definitive thing that you would find compelling?
Honestly, for me personally, it would have to be some sort of physical thing. Like I wouldn't deny that person's belief that this God or this angel or this deity came to them in a dream. I'm not going to deny that didn't happen, because honestly, I don't know. I've never experienced anything like that.
Let's put other people aside then, because I think this is where I might be getting confused. Okay. Let's put other people aside and let's talk about you, what you would find convincing.
Well, like I said, it would have to be some sort of true spiritual and physical act or experience. Excuse me.
There you go. In other words, something empirical.
And in the absence of that,
like stigmata.
Yeah.
In the absence of that, I mean, stigmata's a contested thing anyway, so maybe not go there. But in the absence of that physical thing, because you're calling to talk about the possibility of a higher power. So in the absence of that physical, empirical thing that can be tested, do you think that is good enough without that thing to say that, well, we should withhold that there is a higher power?
What do you mean by withhold?
I mean, not accept it to be true.
Oh. Honestly, I don't know, to be honest.
Okay. So this is what I'm trying to dig down at. This is what
Okay.
I'm trying to dig into this idea that you've called in about the possibility of a higher power, and you've said that it's the kind of the empirical thing which would demonstrate to you that a higher power existed. But in the absence of this empirical
explained
thing,
my idea of a potential higher power. That's the thing. My idea of a potential higher power would be not. It wouldn't be something conscious the way that most people tend to believe, like a true comes into human form and is all knowing, all powerful. I would feel more that it is just a consciousness, an ethereal ball of light, if you will, that has no form, that has no conscious way of thinking, and our existence and the possibility of souls, let me rephrase, our purpose on this earth is to give this consciousness the ability to experience life, to experience the physical realm, if this were the case, if this entity were to exist, any type of
that's quite
higher power.
Specific. Marissa, that's quite a specific description for something that you say you don't actually accept is true, and something that you said would you'd be convinced of only if it could be tested empirically. This sounds like something that couldn't be tested empirically. So, it sounds like you kind of, to me,
is an idea.
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're clinging to this idea. You're presenting this idea just for the sake of something to hold on to. Is what it's sounding like.
Honestly,
to me.
That is the honest truth. Like, this is my final grasp at accepting the existence of any ethereal being that humanity has concocted.
Yeah. I guess that's up to you to figure out whether that's something that's worth holding on to.
Accepting life, or accepting death.
Yeah. Like for me, like I haven't observed anything that has a mind that isn't physical, right? I've never seen a mind that hasn't been bounded by the physical in some way. So to say that there could be a unphysical mind that exists out there would defy how I understand what minds to be. So that, that's something you might think about with this. If this is an idea that you're interested in deconstructing, but honestly, if this is just an idea you want to hold on to because it makes you feel better about death, or it's just something that gives you some peace, I mean, that's up to you, right? It's up to you to decide what you want to do with it. But for us, at least for Richard and I think we're interested in trying to figure out what's most likely and sticking with that, right? Because at the end of the day, we do have to make decisions. We do have to make hard calls. Certainly there's stuff we can hold off on. Like the incompatibilism debate we were having earlier, right? Between like free will and stuff, right? That may be something that we may never know, but also may not have any immediate consequences, right? Like this may be another example of that. It's up to you to figure out whether it's going to have consequence for your life. But there's a nobility in trying to know what's true as well, and being honest with yourself. The fact that you've gone as far as you have, I mean, that speaks to your character. I think that speaks to you saying, no, I want to figure out what's true from the bullshit. And I encourage that, but this sounds like this is another step for you, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. This may be another thing that you have to kind of wrestle with and decide whether it's worth keeping.
My target was to try and get your opinions on the plausibility of it all.
Yeah. I mean, non-physical minds, right? I've never seen evidence of their existence. It seems like everything that has a mind, we can point to something in physical reality. So that would be my contention with it.
Yeah, and that coupled with your kind of the idea wrapped up in that you've got this idea about souls which have a purpose towards that non-physical mind as well, I think adds kind of negative evidence, if you like, to it. It adds weight against the possibility of that thing, because then you're not only talking about one thing, this incorporeal mind, you're also talking about these other things, souls, which are something completely different and deserve a conversation in their own right as to whether they're possible. And these two things interacting with each other, there's a lot of stuff there. But I agree with Dan. You've come a long way already, and keep asking the questions. It's very helpful to have self-dialogue and talk through these things yourself and kind of look at, go down the route of saying, well, I think this might be a possibility, and then I've got this other thing which I think might be a possibility. Let's kind of deconstruct each one of those things and look at the possibility of those existing in their own right together, and kind of dismantling it in that way, I think is the thing I would do if it was me having this conversation with myself. But we'll let you go. Give us a call back. And let's when you've had a think about it, give us a call back, and we'll continue the conversation then. It's certainly an interesting kind of avenue to go down. We have still got calls. Callers, don't go away. We are going to go over time a little bit to try and fit you in. So we will do the best we can. I'm just going to give a quick set of announcements before we do. If you happen to be in the Austin area, August 27th, 2023 for the Back Cruise weekend, then please consider joining us for the live broadcast of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. Talk Heathen will be hosted by Forrest Valkai, J. Mike, and Jamie Forbes. We get a triple there. And the Atheist Experience will be hosted by Johnny P. Angel, Forrest Valkai, and J. Mike. So you get two triple bills that day. That's going to be very interesting. Doors open at noon, and we very, very much hope to see you there. We're going to jump straight in for another call. We're going to take Atari, who wants to say that the problem of evil proves God. Atari, hello, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine. How about you?
Very well, thank you. You think the problem of evil proves God?
Well, yes. Not directly, but I think it's a good argument for it. Atheists like to make such judgments about God. They make universal judgments about God, and I don't understand how can non-believers make such judgments. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, because I still have preferences whether or not a God exists. I still have things that I would want to happen, would want not to happen, whether or not a God exists. So a God isn't really necessary for us to have an understanding of right and wrong. Again, that's not saying that objective right and wrong exists, or that I even have access to it, or if I even think that's a coherent concept. But when people talk about right and wrong, you can still say it's relative to people's interests, and that's still a system of right and wrong. Again, it doesn't have to be objective in a universal sense. It can still be relative to people, and that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
But if it's not objective, then you cannot make such judgments about God, which is supposed to transcend all of universe.
Well, I can make judgments about God. Why can't I?
Because you do not believe in objective morality. And
Yeah,
even if you
I don't believe in objective morality, but why does that mean I can't make judgments? I, Objectively Dan, can still make judgments, whether objective morality is real or not, right?
Because you are assuming God exists in a for the argument, and then saying that if God exists, then he couldn't exist because he's immoral.
Well, yeah,
You know,
I don't believe God exists. You're right, but I'm just entertaining the idea that if he did exist, whether he would be a good person or not, right? Like if Adolf Hitler was a mythological figure, I could still assess whether he was a good guy or not, right?
All right.
Sorry?
Then I would like to ask you what you think about free will.
Okay, well, that's kind of different from what you wanted to talk to us about originally.
Yeah.
We kind of already
And,
talked about free will, to be honest. We kind of gave our opinion on that. But, I mean, does this make sense? Let's talk about this. Like, people can have subjective judgments and still determine whether something is right or wrong, right? I mean, do you agree with me on this?
You can make judgments about yourself as it relates to you, but you're making, when you're talking about God, you're making judgments about the whole world. So there has to be objective morality, which can exist without God.
I don't see why there has to be objective morality. Why, if me judging God, why does that mean it has to be objective?
Because it affects everyone, not just you.
But why does that matter? I probably can't sing that, actually. I'll probably get in trouble. Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay.
I can
all right.
Anyway.
All right, that's fine. No, that's cool. I think we're kind of getting towards the end of the show here anyway, so we should be wrapping things up. Richard, do you have anything else on this, or?
No, I mean, we didn't really touch on the problem of evil much there, but, give us a call back on Atari and have a think about Atari, and have a think about it. I think we've had a couple of callers who've called in today who haven't really thought through the kind of things they're presenting. And, maybe before you call in the call-in show, kind of telling us that God exists because of X, you might like to form an actual argument as to why that's the case. It would make for a much more interesting conversation. We are going to jump in to, let's have a look. Jason, who is asking, is society becoming more religious or more atheists? We are going to try and get to everybody on the lines. So please do stay on the lines if you are on the lines. Jason. Oh, I've lost Jason. Jason appears to have dropped. So we will take Nick, who is wants to ask about veganism. Called a couple of weeks ago, Nick, and we had a little conversation, and I asked you to call back in.
Nick from Ohio, what's going on?
I was gonna answer the question about like who I'd take in hell. I guess as a roommate, I'd take that Mike guy. Take one for the team.
Oh damn, dude!
Has to have him.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to call in about veganism. I know Dan. I know you're a vegan, so go Dan. There are dozens of us.
There are dozens of us. Dozens.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I guess to jump right in, I was going to just mention that, so people maybe kind of misunderstood what I was talking about last time based on the comment section. So here's my position. My position's sort of isomorphic to atheism. So it's that if you ask most people, so if you ask them, like, is it okay to shoot rocks at songbirds? Is it okay to cut the fins off of dolphins? I went to a flea market, found a box of free puppies. Can I grab a ball peen hammer and fire up the grill at home? People will react to all of those very negatively. And the question is, why is it that we accept in all these other circumstances that we're going to say that it's unethical to negatively impact their well-being, or however it is you want to justify it? It doesn't really matter to me. That you're just going to say that that's unethical, but we're going to carve out this weird set of exceptions for a weird particular set of animals. And I don't understand what that difference is. And the thing is that that's kind of a null hypothesis, just like atheism is. And so to reject, you can either reject this null hypothesis, say that there is some difference, or you could fail to state that difference. But I could never really prove to you that you don't have any justification for separating those things out. I hope that kind of makes sense, that the burden of proof would be on the person that's trying to justify that they're not special pleading. Does that make sense?
I think Richard has to answer this because my opinion is going to be very different from Richard's.
I think we talked about this in the comment section a little bit. I'm kind of disappointed you've jumped back to this rather than the thing that I specifically asked you to call in and discuss, which I think was much more interesting, and I am going to get to via answering this.
Okay, sure, yeah.
I agree that we shouldn't harm things for the sake of harming them. Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah,
I think vegans. I have this thing with veganism, right? Where I have no problem with veganism whatsoever. The only question I have of vegans is if you specifically think it is a moral imperative that we become vegan, I want to know your reasons why, and that is it. Via being vegan, I have no problem.
Nick, I'm gonna come in here. All right, I'm coming in hot.
He's coming in hot.
Here's the deal, Richard. So there's an author called Melanie Joy who writes about this. She has this book, and the book titles a mouthful. It's Why We Wear Cows, Love Dogs. Sorry, why we love dogs, eat pigs, and wear cows. See, I can't even say it right. I had to look it up because I couldn't remember. So she talks about this concept that Nick is alluding to, is this idea of carnism, right? It's this idea that we kind of put animals into these social categories of what's accepted for them to be eaten, what's acceptable for them to wear their clothes from, get our clothes from, what's acceptable to cause harm to if it's to our benefit. And there's some animals that don't fit that kind of criteria. So dogs are a great example. Most Americans love dogs. They love it. If I said, I am going to get my dog from the local dog farm, don't worry, and just to get some clothes, but don't worry, they're locally sourced, they're organically fed, and it's really great. Most people would still be against this. And so you kind of come into the question why. And so I think Nick's point is it appropriate that somebody has to be accountable to that, right? That if you already have this social category that describes what an animal should be and what's acceptable for them or not, do they have to be answerable to that? Is that a fair summation, Nick?
Yeah, except it's a weirder position than that. So it's not even just why is it that we make these strata for the animals themselves. And the thing is that it's not as though you could do anything to a cow. It's not that we identify a cow, a pig, and a chicken. We say, okay, these animals, you can do everything. What happens is a lot of times when you argue with people, what you'll find is that they'll say that oh, well, you can't, for instance, or I'm against factory farming, or you'll have some other caveats, which actually is an even more contorted position. So you're not just special pleading across the animals that you're choosing, but you're also really picking and choosing those rights. And I would sort of give an example, which is sort of a funny example, is let's say, for instance, somebody said to you, I agree with you on everything on property rights, except I specifically make the exception that it's okay to steal blue cars, right? Specifically steal, not vandalize, specifically blue cars. it's the thing is that the burden of proof would then be like try and argue against that in a way that isn't asking someone, where the hell did you get that from? Why specifically blue? Why specifically steel? Like, it's actually a very bizarre contorted position. The thing I just want to get crystal clear on is that if you don't provide that justification for that distinction that you're making, you're engaging in special pleading, which would be fallacious, and veganism would therefore stand, if that makes sense. So that would be the proof, is that you need to provide a justification. So far, nobody's provided a justification. And so therefore, veganism would stand. And it would stand for the reasons that you would also agree with me on free puppies and so on.
Interesting. It's an interesting route to take with it. Richard, what do you think?
On the puppy thing, I personally, although I don't do it and engage in it myself because it is not legal, I have no problem with people eating puppies. I said it when we had this conversation in the comment section. I told you I was not a carnist. And, we didn't have time to really explore that. If it's legal and the animals are treated well during life, they're not in many cases in puppy farms, which is my contention against puppy farms. There is nothing wrong with people eating animals. I don't think it's not a position which needs justifying.
I'm a devil's advocate, Richard. People are animals, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So we could raise people, eat them?
No, but I would have no problem with people eating animals.
Okay, but people are animals, though.
Yeah, but I would have no problem. Okay, so I wouldn't have.
Okay, so this is Nick's point, though, right? We're the blue cars in this analogy, right? People are the blue cars. We're animals, but it's okay to not do it to people, but we can do it to other.
But we are classed as different to animals as human beings. We are a different form of animals.
Well, what makes us different? What makes us not touchable, but other animals touchable?
Because eatable. we are human beings, and I don't necessarily disagree with. I'm not a humanist in every respect, shall we say? If somebody attempted to harm my daughter, I would have no problem with harming that person.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go around and kick a dog. I wouldn't go around and kick a person for no reason.
But there begs the question, Richard. Why wouldn't you go and kick a dog?
Because I think it's a nasty thing to do. I wouldn't. But
why? Why does the dog's life matter? If you're okay with eating them, why does it matter if you kick them?
Because that's causing harm for no reason. Eating an animal isn't necessarily causing harm to it. It's not causing it.
It's not causing harm to it, Richard. It's ending their life. We don't end.
There's a difference. There is a difference. This is great. There's a marked difference between causing harm to something. I don't agree with factory farming.
Let me really quickly jump in because it seems like we're trying to throw in these justifications. So we're trying to come up with some justification that demonstrates that distinction. Okay. So let me quickly give you two tests that any justification has to pass. Okay. So the first one is that if you think that you can draw a line where you can say something is, I'm drawing such and such a line, the first test is quite simply the thing that you want to be ethical or unethical has to actually be divided by that justification. And the second thing is that it has to come out of some sort of framework of well-being or some sort of framework of morality. Don't worry about the second premise or the second condition because everything fails the first one. So, for instance, if you're saying that, I'm going to just axiomatically assert that human beings are special, I can axiomatically assert anything, just as Dan pointed out. So that doesn't work. So, last time they tried lab-grown meat, again, we wouldn't make that justification for specific. We're still narrowing down that specific set of animals. It wouldn't actually justify that. Appeals to nature, again, that would include cannibalism. That wouldn't. So everything is just failing this first test. Like humanism, last time I know, you don't take this position, but humanism, again, people have problems with eating, like, let's say dolphins or elephants or gorillas or Neanderthals, right? Like, okay, so that definition of humanism or division of humanism, that wouldn't necessarily really divide what they want and so on. We can just go through all the list. In fact, all of these things are all the same arguments. So here's an anti-plug. I actually created a website. I was trying to create like a Talk Origins archive of every single argument against veganism. And the problem with that, I realized about halfway through, is that there's not like 500 arguments against veganism. It's actually, there's only 3. And so all of these are all the first, this is just the first argument. I will assert that animals are okay to eat as funneled through some intermediate property X. And
why does the vegan argument always come down to eating animals? Why isn't it the killing of animals?
Well, that's just that's just like, that's just a shorthand, you know, I mean, but yeah. Ultimately.
But it's not. No, it is not. Categorically, it is not. Why is it eating? I'm asking you specifically why it's eating animals and not killing animals.
We can, well, in the process of eating animals, right? When we farm them, we're ending their life before they would naturally end, right? So like cows can live up to like 20 years, but depending on whether they're farmed for meat or for dairy, they can live up to like 5 at max on average, right? So we are ending the lives short for the purposes of consumption. And so the debate is, you know.
Okay, so that's the criticism.
I also keep it.
Is that the criticism? Is that the criticism?
Well, that's the biggest thing. I mean, like, so you can't exist in life without like taking away resources from or harming animals for the most part, right? When I drive my car, I'm probably gonna hit a fly or something, right? So like there's some that would say that even that's unjust, but regardless, we all have to mitigate like what's just within our actions and what's not. And with veganism, particularly when it comes to food consumption, like that's something you can make a change to do. I became a vegan. There's other people that become vegans. That is something people can do without it being as drastic as one might think. It is going to be more drastic for some people. But
are animals killed?
Say again?
In the production of vegan diets, are animals killed?
Of course, yeah. It takes land mass to farm, but the question is,
that kind of mitigates that argument, doesn't it?
But no, it doesn't, because here's why, Richard. You have to raise crops in order to raise animals, right? It takes more crops to raise the cows and chickens that we do than we do in direct consumption.
The animals dying.
What?
Well, let me just really quickly negate the argument.
Nick comes in here too. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, so the thing is that what about crop deaths is the exact same first argument. Does that actually separate out the things that you want? Animals die, so like I guess mice die, somehow that justifies eating cows, pigs, and chickens and not humans. Humans die in farms, like in farming accidents, and yet we don't say it's moral to eat humans. You understand what I'm saying? Like it doesn't actually create that dividing line. So again, we're like
it kind of does for me though. It's kind of a massive issue for me.
Well,
and it is a massive issue for me that if the argument is
but it wouldn't count
animals die. Nick, if the argument is that an animal dies, an animal dying in food consumption is in the creation of food or in food consumption is the problem, then a vegan diet suffers from the same problem. Just to say, well, it's to a lesser extent.
It is.
It's not a justification.
Wait, hold on, Richard. Hold on. You can't be serious about this, because that's like saying I'm going to raise a human farm, and if you say, wait, listen, Richard, listen. I'm raising a human farm, and you're saying, well, that still produces it, and I gave this fence that says, well, your cow farm still produces animal harm, so really my human farm is fine, actually. That you would say that wouldn't suffice, right?
Repeat that again.
Okay, so I have a human farm, right? I'm farming dogs or whatever. I'm farming gorillas to eat, okay? And you're saying actually, that proves harm, and I say, well, what's your solution? We just eat cows instead? Well, that's not a good solution. So I'm just going to keep farming gorillas or keep farming human beings. Like that doesn't compute, right? And the thing is too, like, yeah, there is total land masses usage is less when it comes to vegan diets overall, in particular because you get direct feed from plant crops to humans, whereas you have to grow plants just to raise the animals. And not only does both of that use land, but it also uses food. So we're actually using more food overall to feed the animals on Earth that we do for our animal crops than we even do for plant crops that go directly to humans. Does that make sense? Like we're actually using more farmland right now just to raise the animals that we eat than we do for humans overall. So there is like a very significant less usage of land overall, and therefore less animals dying overall if everyone on Earth went vegan. Like if that was the case, 100%.
And we could also reduce that farmland
actually
if we
worse than
introduced
that, too.
more
That's right, go
ethical
ahead.
farming methods.
Ethical farm, but what's ethical about killing a sentient, cow early on in its lifespan when I can just avoid eating cows altogether?
Well, is it not more ethical to treat a cow grow it in a free range field and feed it and treat it well and give it veterinary care when it needs it? While it's alive?
That's not what happens when you buy cows, though. That's not like it's not what factory farming is.
No, exactly. I agree with you.
Yeah.
This is the whole point I'm making. Is it not more ethical?
Well, Richard, is it not more ethical for me to raise a child and then let it live its natural life and then I eat it towards the end of its life?
Well, no.
Wouldn't that be more ethical?
You
would say no. I could just avoid eating humans, right? Like
Yeah.
that's my argument with the cows. I would just say I'm avoiding eating cows. We avoid the problem.
But you're quite happy for the mice to die in the production of the food.
There's going to be mice that die in the production of cows too, though. I don't know.
But I have no problem with eating cows. I'm not a vegan. I'm not the one who's making the claim that something's dying in order to produce food is wrong.
I don't know, Richard. I think we're at 3:00 now, at least my time. I think we got to wrap up this call, unfortunately. And
can I just
Richard,
say that
if you
I
can think of that justification, then let me know that it has to pass those two tests. It has to separate out the thing that you want.
I don't agree with you that it has to pass those two tests. We come from a different position. So you're not going to convince me by saying it has to pass these two tests. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Well, then you would be engaging in special pleading, and then
it wouldn't.
Veganism.
Hot takes.
Right. Well, I'll just point out that I did specifically. I know people might think this has got a little bit heated, but I specifically asked Nick to call while myself and Dan were hosting together to make for this kind of dynamic in this conversation, rather than just having.
He said, "Nick, call for backup," and I'm here. All right.
I didn't want it to be
ready.
kind of two meat eaters going against a caller. I wanted it to be a more interesting conversation. And for those, Nick, I'll let you go. Please feel free to call in another time. And thank you for the call. For those of you, and there have been some, and I have addressed these on various, whether it's in the comments of the YouTube videos or on social media. For those of you who say that these kind of calls aren't the purpose of this show, I'd like to point out that, as far as I'm concerned, ask the producer of the show, by the way.
That's true.
I'm just going to stick that in there. As far as I'm concerned, Talk Heathen has always fielded calls for not just the God question, but the wider questions of philosophy and the wider questions of ethics. It always has had those questions, and I'm happy for it to have those questions. If you want to see more theist calls, get your theist friends to call in. If you don't want to see the vegan calls, get more theists to call in. We'll talk to them. And it's as simple as that. Share the show. Get your theist friends. Get your pastors and your preachers and your imams to call in, and we'll have those conversations. The power is in your hands, people. But don't tell me what calls I should be taking on my show, because that is not going to go down well. Vegan calls are quite welcome here.
Richard said, "My show." He said, "This is mine."
I said it.
He said, "I own it." Oh no, that's a bad precedent.
Yeah, thank you for all of the callers. We have had an immensely diverse show today, and I have loved it. Dan, how do you think the show went?
Oh, it was good. It was good. It was good. Every time the vegans call in, it's always with all of you guys, and it's never with me on board. So, a little bit of a different dynamic there. It's fun.
Yeah, that's specifically why I asked Nick to call in while you were on. So have you said to yourself, I really love the content the ACA creates, but I wish there was a way I could get it all the time? Well then, we've got you covered. We now have 2 24/7 live streams. AXP TV delivers a constant stream of shows, clips and specials from over the 26 seasons of the Atheist Experience. And now Heathen TV provides you with clips from Talk Heathen. Watch or simply listen to your favorite hosts and discover some hosts you've never heard of. Visit tiny.cc/axptv and tiny.cc/heathentv to join in the fun. So we had the prompt for this week, which was, you are in hell, who is your roommate? Reply in the comments and tune in at the beginning of next week's episode to hear the top 3 answers. And it will be myself and Dan again next week, although the roles will be reserved and Dan will be doing all the talking and I will be sitting.
The roles will be reserved and reversed.
Yes, they will indeed. I'll be one telling people to man up next week.
Oh man, I can't believe. Listen, all right, it's 103 degrees here. I'm like, I have to have the fan off because it'll catch up on the mic. I'm like scratching, I'm sweating. I'm just like, I got a little heated there. Just like, be a man. And then, it's just, I don't know where it came from.
There are many ways to support the show. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Become a member. To click the join button below the video to do that. Support us on Patreon at tiny.cc/patreon.th. We now have a channel that houses all of the ACA in podcast form. Visit tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, and you can become a part of the Talk Heathen community in our fan-run Facebook page at tiny.cc/FBTHD. If you'd like to continue the discussion after the show, join us in the ACD, our fan-run Discord server at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. I will be there talking to Kelly. And we, of course, cannot do this show on our own. We have the fantastic crew who we all love. Let's have a look at them. Look at those beautiful people. That's it. Look, rocking all the shirts from all the shows that matter anyway. What's that Atheist Experience again?
Damn. Richard's like, ever since he became producer, he's just become maniacal with power. And it's just like, yeah, these other shows, they suck. Like, it's only about Talk Heathen now.
I love Truth Wanted. I absolutely adore Truth Wanted. I listen religiously every week, Dan. Thank you to our viewers. Whether you believe or not, if you're an essential worker, we want to thank you. We do it every week and we will continue to do it. If you don't believe, this is your community. We've got those groups that we've mentioned. Go to them. If you do believe, we don't hate you.
We're just not convinced. See you, everybody. Thanks for
watching. See you later, guys. Thank you.
We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live, Friday at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.